The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Game day on a Thursday in week 2 of the NFL season? Not unless you had a really good year the year before. And not unless you have one of those quarterbacks. And Washington has one of those quarterbacks. Green Bay has one of those quarterbacks as well, in an amazing string of quarterbacks that they've had, going to Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers and now Jordan Love. Commanders are down to 3-point underdogs for tonight's kickoff. And by the way, if you don't have Prime Video, public service here, it's available on Channel 5. So the NFL is still making these games available in the local markets for now. But it's more and more expensive to watch the NFL. I think estimates are between $500 and $1,000 to be able to see all of the games. Now, that's, like we got Christmas Day game with Dallas and Washington. I think Dallas comes here, and that will be televised locally, I would imagine, Channel 5. But that's a Netflix game. So get used to riding the high life. This is what happens when you have a good team. You don't play that many games at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. And tonight is game 2 with Washington, really with only one injury concern, and I don't think it's a huge injury concern. Tress Way got slammed in the back, and the punt was partially blocked against the Giants on Sunday. So just in case, they have signed Mitch Wisniewski to the practice squad. This was Dan Quinn yesterday on Tress.
The concern is lower for us now, but like most things, just try to always protect the team and make the decisions. He hit the ball well today, so we signed Mitch, and on a short week, just the right decision to go that way, but we expect Tress to do well. And
a decision will be made in pregame warm-ups tonight. I imagine they took Wisniewski with them on the plane, but he would not suit up if Tress Way is able to go. There was also a report during the week on the injury report that Daniels was dealing with a wrist injury. Quinn totally discounted that, but I did see some video of him throwing passes left-handed. I imagine he'll be able to play tonight, but, if he can't, that's why you have the backup quarterback that you do. And Marcus Mariota has come in and played well in the past, so if they need him tonight. But the big storyline is Micah Parsons and Jayden Daniels. And, yes, there are 52 players on each of the other rosters, but they have gotten most of the attention in what has been a very, very short week. Pro Football Talk, which was hosted yesterday by Mike Florio and what's his name? Miles Simmons. Miles Simmons is his name, played, I guess, in the NFL for a little while. Like Chris Sims must be off. Anyway, they were discussing the matchup, and we'll get it from both sides. This is first Micah Parsons and the issue of controlling him for Washington, with Dan Quinn very familiar with him, coached him his first 2 years in the league with Dallas. And this is Florio and Simmons going over the Quinn comments and what to expect in terms of being able to control number one tonight.
Jay Glazer reported over the weekend that once Micah Parsons landed in Green Bay, Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator, the former head coach at Boston College, he called Dan Quinn and James Franklin. Franklin coached Micah Parsons at Penn State. Quinn obviously was the defensive coordinator in Dallas before he went to D.C. to just find out how to use him. And the message was challenge him. Now, I would assume that doesn't mean challenge him contractually. You're going to lose that one. But challenge him on the football field. Challenge him on the football field, and that's how you get the most out of him. So Quinn knows. And just the way that Quinn said what he said, like he understands that this changes everything. You're going to have a plan. When Micah Parsons is on the field, you're going to have a plan, because everything is going to get accelerated, because he's going to disrupt what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Dan Quinn knows this better than anybody, right? I mean, he was there. He was coaching Micah Parsons when he won defensive Rookie of the Year. Then, the next couple of years, he's an All-Pro. And so this is somebody who does understand how to get the most out of Micah Parsons, but in some ways, that does kind of give him the advantage of, okay, what are maybe one or two things that are not as much strengths. We can't really call weaknesses when we're talking about Micah Parsons, as good as he is, but things that are maybe a little bit more vulnerable than other areas of his game. And that's how you got to try to take advantage of that. I do think that will help a guy like Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, obviously their offensive coordinator, when you're thinking about how to game plan for that Green Bay defense. And that Green Bay defense was excellent last week, and Micah Parsons wasn't on the field for the majority of defensive snaps even at that point. And so he's still getting himself ramped up, and maybe the Thursday night game, especially if you have an issue with your back, is not necessarily the thing that you exactly want this early in the season. So maybe Washington might have a bit of an edge there as well. But I mean, look, Micah Parsons, I think, is just one of those guys where you put him out there and say, hey, man, there's a QB, go get him. And he's more likely than not to make a play for you. And that is why you have to have a plan where you know where he is at all times.
Like Micah and other great players, you want to, know where they are to how to go play. And if you have a vulnerability in a spot, you want to make sure you can fortify that to a strength. So you don't just leave it to chance and see what happens. You want to make sure there's a plan to go into it. And so for teams like Green Bay, they've got a number of good players. And that makes it also more challenging when this one and that one over there. So when there's just one player to stop and say, okay, this is what we want to do, that's easier than when there's multiple people in different locations. So in my experience, the best of the best teams have had a number of players that were high-level hitters, and now this one gets too much attention, you leave this one open, he's gonna shoot the three and make you pay. And so you want to have, enough balance in how you do things to make sure that one player, doesn't get too much attention, but also enough that they don't wreck the game.
I'm impressed by how poke a stick in a hornet's nest in Green Bay. I mean, he's very, I'd be saying, God, I don't know what we're going to do.
Well, he's
Could there be a storm? Could there be a weather delay that wipes out the whole game?
He's so worried about Micah Parsons that he's using 3 different sports to talk about how good he is and how they have all these other players. He's talking about heavy hitters, right? I mean, I guess that sort of is football, but also really, I mean, you could tell he was basically talking about a baseball lineup, but then you also have, then they're going to shoot the three as if he's talking about Steph Curry. So it's man, Micah Parsons is so good, he makes you talk about different sports in order to say how good he is.
Well, Miles Simmons clearly hasn't listened to too many of Dan Quinn's news conferences because he's a huge NBA fan, and he talks about basketball and football sense a lot. But the gist of what he's saying is, you got to be aware of where Micah Parsons is all the time, but if you put too much attention on him, other players are going to make plays. So they've got a scheme, I'm sure. He's going to make his presence known. The question is, how is he going to be a game wrecker? And that's what Jayden Daniels said this past week was you can't let a game wrecker wreck a game, and that's what they're going to be concentrating on. As far as containing Jayden Daniels, and you'll hear Dan Quinn in the next hour talk about, hey, people have to look out for us too. What about containing Jayden Daniels? And the two of them, Miles Simmons and Mike Florio, analyzed what was said by Micah Parsons about containing number 5.
Oh, man, it's hard. He's just one of them guys that, no matter what you could just try to contain the whole time. You could power him. He can go through the A and B gaps, get outside of you. It's hard, you know what I mean? I just think you just got to limit the explosives, make them earn it. And that's what we got to do on defense. Make them earn every first down, every big-time catch, hit them after they catch. Every read option, hit him, hit the running back. Everyone got to get hit every play. And just let them know. It's just got to go out there and play hard.
Yeah, look, when you have superior talent on the field and it's obvious that there's something different about that player. When we were talking to incoming draft picks at the Scouting Combine early 2024, we like to get a vibe for who's the toughest guy you ever faced? Who's that guy that you were just oh no? And to a man, the SEC defensive players all said Jayden Daniels. All of them. He's there and then he's gone. And we saw it last year. It translated. He's there and then he's gone. And Micah Parsons is one of the few that could maybe chase him down. I don't know. Maybe he won't. We'll find out. But it definitely makes it harder for the Commanders to deal with Micah Parsons. I mean, look, having that great quarterback is exactly what everyone wants. And now that the Commanders have it, they're contenders. But they really are. They really are slipping into the Lions' den on Thursday night. Now, it's not like it was going to be an easy game against the Packers anyway. But now with Parsons, and he's probably going to play more than he did on Sunday, it's going to make for a very compelling right out of the gates Thursday night. Think about some of the early season games we've seen. It's a good Thursday night game for the first short week game of the year.
Oh, totally, man. I mean, between the quarterback matchup, you got really good defensive players as well. I mean, Laramie Tunsil, you get your big boy pads on, man. Get ready to strap them up because, I mean, that's a huge matchup between those two guys, you know, and depending on the way that Jeff Hafley wants to implement Micah Parsons, he could be on the other side too, you know. So this is just one of those things where I'm compelled by football all the time. It makes me very happy to sit there and watch football. And this is one of those games that you won't watch. I mean, it would have had juice anyway, you know, between Jordan Love, Jaden Daniels and all that. Come on. But man, you add Micah Parsons to the mix, and that just really does take this first Thursday night game really for Amazon to the next level. It's awesome.
That's what's going to be an interesting thing this week and going forward. Will he be attacking the left side, the right side? Where are you going to put Micah Parsons? They had him go against Penei Sewell, one of the best tackles in all of football, repeatedly on Sunday when the Lions and the Packers played. And look, it wasn't domination by Parsons, but you're not used to seeing Penei Sewell get pushed backward. You're not used to seeing him, you know, lose his guy to the inside, and that's where Parsons was very effective on that inside rush, but we'll see how they use him.
And could he line up against Laramie Tunsil on the left side? This is part of the reason that they got Laramie Tunsil. They figured to be playing Parsons twice a year, and maybe they still will in the playoffs, but we're going to see him tonight. Analysis in the Post, I think you've probably heard this, that the Commanders have the oldest roster in the league. And historically, at least in recent history, one of the oldest rosters, 28.6 years of age. The second oldest roster since Joe Gibbs last year, 2007, where the average age was 28.7. This one, 28.6. And they have both sides of this, whether this is a good idea or not. Brian Gutekunst, who put together the Packers roster, which is much younger, says it's a young man's game. You need legs. You need the speed. Adam Peters, the reason he had to do this was because the Ron Rivera drafts were hideously bad. I mean, they basically got nobody out of those drafts. So these are quick fixes. These are guys who can play, and you're kind of using them as placeholders until you draft their replacements, but they're also in that spot where you've got a quarterback under a rookie contract and you want to take advantage of the next 2 years. So you have cap room to get veterans in here, and they're not, paying through the nose for most of these guys. I mean, they're sort of at the end here, and you're getting them on pretty good deals especially in the cases of guys like Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner, who are in their mid-30s but can still play and can still lead the team in terms of the veteran presence and all of that. And here's a couple of quotes. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's part of the prime pre- and post-game stuff. You'll see him tonight. He said, you got this window with Jaden Daniels, and they're going all in. He said that resonates through a locker room, too. You look around, and all of a sudden, Von Miller is your teammate. You make a trade for Laramie Tunsil. Those type of things are showing the guys that they're all in, and they think they're good enough to win a Super Bowl this year. So on top of getting veteran guys, getting guys who can still play, and going for it, you're also showing the younger players we're doing everything we can here. This is all in. We're not a rebuilding team. Last year was what Dan Quinn called recalibrating. They made it to the NFC Championship game. This year, they're going to try and kick the door in. Here's another stat here. Commanders have 17 players on their 53-man roster who are in their 30s, including 6 who started in Sunday's win over the Giants. The Packers have 2, kicker Brandon McManus and long snapper Matt Orzech. Well, the long snappers, they play on in anonymity forever. because if unless they make a bad snap, you don't know who they are. They stay on the team. There's the veteran minimum that they always play for, and you know it's like Ron Popeil. You set it and forget it. The kicker could have been here, and he was. Brandon McManus, they had signed him before last season, and then the civil suit came up from the flight attendants who had been on a flight with Jacksonville to London the year before, and they said McManus was abusive, and the suit was eventually thrown out. But given the history of this organization, there's no way they could keep him around, so they cut him loose, and they had 4 different kickers last year. So hopefully Matt Gay is going to stick around for this year and will be their kicker throughout the season. But McManus has been really good for Green Bay. I mean, if things had worked out, that would have been great to have him for all of last year and this year, but the history of this organization, you just couldn't do that. So older team, worked out well last year, worked out well for week 1. We'll see what happens as the season goes on. You know, the thing about Wagner and Ertz, not only were they good, they were healthy last year. And that's always the concern when you get older players, that they start to break down, and we didn't see that. Now, Ertz had some injury problems, which is part of the reason he had been released by Arizona the year before. He didn't catch on until the end of the season with Detroit, and the only way he would have played that year is if they made the Super Bowl. He was like the tight end in waiting when they played in the NFC Championship game and lost. Coming up, is Caleb Williams perhaps the worst quarterback of the 6 that were taken last year? That is starting to be the buzz around the league. We'll hear what some of the experts have to say. Next, it's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Before we get to Caleb Williams, we cannot let this day pass without memories. We all have them from 9/11. I've given mine in the past, but I think on the anniversary, it's good to look back. There are people now, it's hard to believe this, there are people now who are college graduates who weren't born on this day in 2001. And they are learning about this like I learned about Pearl Harbor, you know. It's really remarkable how quickly time passes. But I do remember this like it was yesterday. And at the time, we were doing Tony Kornheiser's show from the ESPN zone downtown. It was not that far from the Pentagon. And I got into the studio. It was inside the restaurant. No longer exists. I think it was 11th and E, if I'm not mistaken. And I got into the studio. Kevin Stanfield, who was the producer, was watching television. And I said, well, what are you looking at here? And he says, a plane went into the World Trade Center. Really? Wow. I mean, don't they have better air traffic control? And as we're watching, because this would have been close to 9 o'clock, 8:47 was when the first plane hit. Another plane went in, and I went, oh, wow. And then, we turn up the volume. I think Today's Show was on, and the discussion was, maybe this is a terrorist situation. And not long after, heard kind of a loud noise. Now, I didn't know, where it was coming from or anything, but as we're getting ready to go on the air, the show went on at 10 o'clock in the morning. And management back in Bristol made the decision not to go to ABC News, that we were going to run the show and talk about it. And we see Jim Miklaszewski, just as right before 10 o'clock. And he's talking to Katie Couric from the Pentagon, and he says, we believe that a plane has hit there. And now it, gets even more scary for those of us in Washington, D.C. This is now not just a New York story. This is local as well. So we get on the air, and Tony's talking about what's been happening and how we've learned of what's gone on in the time leading up to the show. And then the manager of the restaurant came into the studio. We'd never done that before, and you just don't do that if you're doing a radio show unless there's something very serious and an emergency. And he said, we've been told to evacuate the restaurant. And so Tony said on the air, okay, we're going to follow directions, obviously, and wrap up the show, and they're going to send it to ABC News. And if you remember, it was a gorgeous day, just a beautiful, beautiful day, 70 degrees, sunshine, and we went outside, and it's one of the strangest feelings I've ever had. People had evacuated their offices, right downtown D.C., and everybody was walking around kind of dazed, like there wasn't, oh, my God, have we seen what's happened here? It was just sort of a fog that had gone over everybody. And Tony said, let's go over to the Washington Post. We can hang out there. I'd taken the Metro down. The station was in Rockville, and I'd always take the Metro down for the show. And he said, let's see what's going on there. We get to the front of the Post, and they say, sorry, Tony, we're only letting employees in. So I said, okay, I understand that. And I was going to figure out a way to get home. And I thought that the Metro was going to be closed because of, security concerns and so forth. But I saw a couple of guys getting out of a car. I started to walk towards DuPont Circle, thinking maybe I could get a ride. I mean, who knew? I mean, at that point, you're just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And two guys were getting out of a car, and I said, have you been listening to the radio? I said, yes. Is Metro closed? They said, no. So I got on the DuPont Circle Metro station and wrote it back, and people, again, nobody in a real panic, just like, oh, my God, I can't believe what happened. And anyway, went back to the studios. They were canceled the afternoon show. They were going to run ABC all day. And I went home. My kids were brought home from school early, and it's a day never forget. And I didn't think, even though we've gone through things since then, including the pandemic, but I didn't think that 24 years later that life would be somewhat the same. I mean, it's never going to be the same, but if you remember, all the flights were shut down, baseball shut down for a week, the NFL games that weekend weren't played, and I thought, this is not going to be the same world that I was living in. And, thank God it's back. There's changes, obviously. But if you got on a plane a couple weeks later, you were going to be in a security line for a couple of hours. And there have been other scares, other things that have happened, but thank God nothing like 9/11 since this day 24 years ago. So next year will be historic, and I don't want to say celebrate, because it's not that. We mark the 25th anniversary. I also do remember this from the Super Bowl. This is a story that I've told many times. The Super Bowl, if you remember, was delayed a week because they didn't play games for that week. So they still wanted to have the 2 weeks in between the championship games and the Super Bowl. So they paid the car dealers convention a lot of money to hold it for the first time in February. It's the first week of February. And it was in New Orleans. And going to the Superdome the day of that game and seeing the ring of tanks around the stadium was just mind-blowing. And I had a credential so I could get inside. But if you didn't have anything like that, you weren't going near the stadium. And I'll never forget that scene. I also won't forget this. That was historic, too, for the Patriots. That was the first Brady Super Bowl. Adam Vinatieri kicking the game-winning field goal at the end to beat the heavily favored Rams, who were looking to go back-to-back. And the Patriots had an offensive lineman named Joe Andruzzi. And Joe Andruzzi was from New York, and he had two brothers who were firefighters. And the day of 9/11, they held a press conference in the Patriots facility because Andruzzi wanted to assure everybody that he'd been told his brothers were okay, and he wanted to put that out. But that was a very, very scary thing. The media goes down on the field about 10 minutes to go, usually in a Super Bowl. And so I walked off the field at the same time the Patriots did. And I'll never forget the scene of Andruzzi hugging his two brothers. I mean, what an emotional thing. What I was doing for ESPN that day was I was doing locker room interviews and then running the cassette tapes. If you remember cassette tapes, running it back to the position where the broadcast was going on. I forget who was hosting the postgame, but they were playing my interviews on the air, and I'd run back and I'd get another one. And a woman saw me going in and out of the locker room, and she said, would you do me a favor and have my son autographed this program for, and she was standing there with someone of the cloth, the collar and the whole thing. And he said, would you do that? And I said, who's your son? And she said, Joe Andruzzi. I said, oh, okay. So I went in and I said, look, my credential says I'm not supposed to do that, but would you mind autographing this for your mother? he said, okay. And I delivered the program on my way out, and she invited me to Sunday dinner if I was ever in New York, which is an offer I've never taken her up on. But it is an unbelievable day to look back on, and I don't think we should let an anniversary of it pass without recognizing that. All right, on to Caleb Williams. Now, if you remember, 2024 draft, everybody remembers that Caleb Williams went 1, Jaden Daniels went 2. Daniels was Rookie of the Year. They met early in the season in October. Washington won on the Hail Mary, and the two teams went in opposite directions. The offensive coordinator and the head coach were fired in Chicago. Jaden went on to win the MVP, or the Rookie of the Year, and to take the Commanders to the NFC Championship game. And the Bears won, 5 games last year? The rest of the draft, I mean, this was a historic draft, first one since '83, where 6 quarterbacks were taken. Drake May to New England. He's tracking to be very good. Michael Penix Jr. in Atlanta looks good. He went 8. J.J. McCarthy to Minnesota at 10. He missed all of last year with a knee injury, but in the first game outdueled Caleb Williams the other night. And then Bo Nix went number 12 to Denver. So 6 of the first 12 picks, quarterbacks, and 5 of them look like they're going to be good. Caleb Williams still looks like he's good, but is he generational in what most people thought when he was coming out of USC last year and was the clear number 1 pick? The Bears supposedly didn't look at anybody else, and they took him number one. Now, a season and 1 game into his career, what are we looking at? Mark Sanchez, who was, somewhat of a bust in the NFL, though he did take the Jets to 2 AFC championship games, now an analyst with Fox, on Dan Patrick's show yesterday with what he saw from Caleb in his first game this year.
It seemed like he reverted to some of those bad habits. And, the good plays aren't just good. They're incredible. They're, top 10 highlight reel good. And then the bad ones, you're like, how do we miss that throw? How do we, what is it? What are we missing here? And, you saw his speed when he decided to actually run on one of them. Oh my God. He's way faster than you think.
But can you be objective when you're talking about him? Because, I know it's
because of USC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I got to call it how I see it. And
what concerns you then that you got the best offensive head coach, play caller. You got what you need. You got weapons. You got an offensive line that's improved. What's missing here?
A couple of those throws. You just got to hit a couple of those throws. I don't know if it's the front foot. So, like, if you're a right-handed quarterback, your front left toe, your left big toe, the ball's going to go right off that big toe. Wherever you point it, that's where the ball's going. So it's natural for right-handers on an in-breaking route from right to left, so like a slant route on the right-handed thrower's right side, breaking to the left, to leave the ball to the right, behind the guy, right? It's natural for the guy going the opposite direction to throw it in front of him. He was like all over the place on both. And, a couple of scenarios where guys were open. You saw DJ Moore, the one in the end zone to the left side. So that's kind of like the little red thing on your mailbox.
Yeah, the flag.
When it's up, you check the mail. Yeah, the little flag.
Yeah,
that's like DJ just broke off his route and threw his hand up because nobody was there. That's like if you're a veteran receiver and you're really Randy Moss used to do it all the time. He'd just throw his hand up and then it's a go ball. All right, red flag, check the mail and launch it. And it landed 10 yards out of bounds. And you're like, oh man, like those ones, you're just, I don't know if it's just the excitement but sometimes the ball just jumps out of his hand and it's, completely out of whack. And then the other ones that are, they got to be perfect. They're money, and it's just the inconsistency right now. And so hopefully it's, first game jitters or something. And they correct it because, I'm obviously rooting for him. But yeah, it wasn't his best game. It was inconsistent. He started hot. and then it looked like a little bit like last year.
He's one of those quarterbacks or players that I would call the red zone player. When you're watching the red zone, they show you highlights. But if you watch the totality of a game, that's when you realize that
right.
He might have had 4, great moments. It was all the other ones. So there's certain players. Kyler Murray would be like that. I'm like, damn, he's having a great game. And then all of a sudden you look at his stats and you go, oh, well, he only had 3 other completions there. Certain guys like that.
Yeah, highlight reel guys. He was 11 of his last 25 on Monday. And the touchdown that he threw to Roma Dunze with 2 minutes to go, that really just made the score look better. I mean, he was outplayed by J.J. McCarthy, who was playing his first game and tied a rookie record that was set by Steve Young in getting 3 fourth-quarter touchdown passes in his debut. Now, there's also this analysis from Kurt Warner of the NFL Network, maybe the most overachieving quarterback we've ever had, undrafted free agent, goes to 3 Super Bowls and is in the Hall of Fame. He's also looked at the tape, and this was his analysis of Caleb.
I still have questions about Caleb. There were things in the game or things that I saw that, continue to lend themselves to my opinion that he's got a long way to go in terms of settling down, slowing the game down, playing at the pace that he needs to play, seeing things and slowing the mental processes down. I felt, more than I saw that, like when you watch the tape, I didn't see necessarily a lot of that in terms of, he was getting through some reads and he was getting to his 3rd and 4th guy at times, but I just felt it by kind of his body language in the pocket where I just want to see that kind of settle down and slow down and make me feel as if he's really comfortable with what they're asking him to do. But I thought he played a really, really good game. And if you are a football nut and you want to go see what I'm talking about, I'll show you the tape. And there was not a lot of opportunities for him down the field to make plays. And his number 1 receiver wasn't open a lot in this game. And I thought he did a lot of really, really good things. And, what's been accentuated, of course, and it makes sense, is some critical throws, right? The 4th down throw, got to make it, right? I mean, it's just, that was one of the most open throws he had all night long, and he just missed it. Another one to Cole Kmet, down kind of close to the red zone, another open throw that he missed. So there were some key throws that he missed in the game, and I think that's why everybody's looking and panicking. But if you look at the body of work, I thought he played a really, really solid game.
Okay, so that calms down some Bears fans who are panicking over this. The other thing that he's got to learn to do is to get rid of the ball and not take sacks like he did last year. If you don't know the numbers, most people know Derek Carr is the all-time sacked quarterback, happened in his rookie year with an expansion team with the Houston Texans. He was sacked 76 times. Randall Cunningham is second, and that was his rookie year as well with the Eagles in 1986. He was sacked 72 times. Carr, though, had like a comeback year, if you want to call it that. In 2005, he had 68 sacks, and that's what Caleb had last year. So David Carr is the sacked king, most ever in a season, 76 in 02, and tied for 3rd with Caleb Williams at 68 from the 05 season. And Sam Howell from 2 years ago was sacked 65 times. In fact, he was tracking to be sacked more than David Carr. But Carr also on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday, and Dan didn't mince words.
Were you rooting for Caleb Williams to break your sack record?
That's tough, man. I know how bad I felt at that moment, and I didn't want, because I was like contemplating, do I want to play football anymore? Like, this is kind of hard. I've played every sport. Like, I feel like you can figure it out eventually. Like, you play golf, like you're gonna figure it out. Like, you give me enough time, I'll find a way to win. But it was hard, man. Like, because that's something that's so out of your control. So for me, like when I'm watching him, I kind of didn't want him to, honestly. Like, if I'm being honest, like I didn't want him to break the record because I don't want anybody to have to go through that, because he might not play football anymore. Like, he might not want to do it. It's so hard to go through all the stuff we've talked about. Ownership of the offense, leadership, like being in the right place at the right time, doing all the right things. And then you do everything right. That's what I struggled so much with, is like, I remember telling my wife one night, I was like, I don't know physically or mentally what else to do. Like, I don't know what else to do. And so when you get to that point, that's a tough, someone's got to bring you back, because it's got to be something outside of yourself. So fortunately for me, I had some great people around me and some good coaches eventually. And I got to New York and I found out football was easy. So, I mean, that was my favorite part.
76 sacks in one season.
76,
So you're
man.
first and third on the.
Oh yeah, don't worry. We went 76, and then we kind of skipped a year, had a good year, had I think 50, and then we said, we're going to go back up there. We got to get our numbers up.
68.
We're too low.
You went from 76 and then just back up to 68.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I felt great. New hip. I got brand new hip. Titanium. Feels great. It's the best joint that I have in my body. Works better than all the other ones. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, sometimes those stories of quarterbacks, it's where you land. And David Carr was the number one pick out of Fresno State in 2002, goes to an expansion team, and an expansion team, it's going to take time to build up the roster. And he got sacked 76 times. 76 times in a 16-game schedule. So I suppose now with 17 games, and I'm sure we're going to be at 18 before long, somebody will eventually break the David Carr record. But there's a couple of other things in that. One is health. And if you're being sacked 76 times, you got to be able to stay healthy enough to get more sacks playing in more games. So that's another factor in all that, and it's probably numbers that you really don't want to get into. All right, coming up, more from Dan Quinn on tonight's matchup, and Frank Caliendo hit it out of the park on the Rich Eisen Show yesterday. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Frank Caliendo is the best. I don't think there's anybody who's an impressionist who's close. A period of time back in the 70s, there was a comedian named David Fry who did a very good Richard Nixon impression. Rich Little, maybe the most famous impressionist of all time. Neither one was as good as Caliendo. And Caliendo, particularly with sports, just is incredible. And you can throw a name at him without him being prepared, and he'll not only deliver a spot-on impression, he'll make it funny, really funny. And he's developed a Jerry Jones impersonation, which he got from watching the Netflix series, which just wrapped up, America's Team. I watched the whole thing. It's 7 parts. It's dominated by Jerry, who was supposedly paid something like, was it $50 million to participate? I mean, it's an insane amount of money, but he also did an insane amount of interviews, like 40 hours, they said, to put it together. But Caliendo watched it, and you'll get to hear that coming up shortly. Commanders, as you know, play Game 2 of the season tonight in Green Bay. The line opened at 3.5. It's now down to 3. The concern was over Tress Way, and maybe there is still concern, although Dan Quinn says he's going to play tonight. He expects him to play. They've signed Mitch Wisniewski, added him to the practice squad just in case. Everybody else is healthy, although there was on the injury list Jaden Daniels with a wrist problem. Quinn says, no, that everything's fine there. But there, again, I saw some video from camp this week of him throwing left-handed. He's not going to throw left-handed in the game, but maybe there is just enough concern about the wrist that they're trying to play it as safe as possible. Anyway, what we've seen in Game 1 is that there are many players that are taking the field. They are looking at a variety of combinations while obviously trying to win games. But this was Quinn's take on it yesterday.
We do like this group, and in this September football, man, you're rolling through guys, you're playing, you're getting the fight right, you're getting the play style right. So it is conscious. I would say not maybe as much as you would when you're tailoring things toward the end of a season. In the early part, man, you want to get reps for people, you want to see guys go, and that's how roles start to emerge. So you do have to do that a little bit in September football, Ben, just to get the play style up and running like you want it to.
And this part 2 is interesting from yesterday, that you talk about the matchups that the Commanders have, and you're coming off a season where you came out of nowhere. Each week you're dealing with teams that are supposedly better than you, and they climbed the mountain. They survived a 3-game losing streak. They got past 2 playoff teams on the road, winning at Tampa and then beating Detroit, who a lot of people had going to the Super Bowl. And finally it ran out against the Philadelphia Eagles. But off of that, with a team that was tested last year and survived the tests and comes into this season being talked about as a possible team to get to the Super Bowl, Quinn says, yeah, maybe it's time for people to talk about, hey, it's not what we have to deal with, it's that other teams have to deal with us.
We're not there yet, but I want that to grow as we play more. And that's why I think in the early part of the season, that identity is formed, not by what's called, but how you play it. And I'm watching the how a lot because I want to see that toughness. I want to see the finishing of plays. And I know there's going to be mistakes and how quickly we can get back to getting right. That happens. Like any coach, you don't want to see them, but you also recognize like that's part of it. I want to see that play style, the toughness, the physicality, the finishing. That's what I want to see, but it doesn't happen. It's got to be formed. And so that's what I'm looking for again.
With how well the defense played Sunday, you pointed out those 2 goal line stands. Are those like confidence building moments? Can those like translate, or momentum, confidence translate week to week, or is that something you just leave with the Giants and move on? Yeah,
you move on, but there's something that you do take because, quite honestly, a lot of that comes from preparation. Knowing that, like, hey, you put the work in, you're putting the work in, and so you can perform after putting the work in. The opponent is important, but it's also like the techniques, the work that you put in, and so that's what I want to draw from, and then take it higher again. And if you can stay into that course of improving, then I think you got a chance to play well. There'll be other games where it doesn't go like that, but I want to make sure the effort, the techniques, that's what I'm seeing improve, and that's what I'm watching for.
Hey, so far, Washington has kept opponents out of the end zone the entire season. We'll see how long that lasts tonight. But keeping the Giants out, the 2 goal line stands, very impressive, and you'll see what tonight brings in Green Bay. Meantime, Steve Young, who I don't know what's going on with PTI. Maybe he's making something of a comeback with the network. They like to have their own people on. And the other day they had Jeff Saturday on, who's, of course, part of their morning coverage and NFL coverage. But they love Steve Young. And 2 years ago, Steve Young was let go by ESPN. And he doesn't need to work. He's been incredibly successful as a CEO in business. He's Silicon Valley. But his insight in football is good, and he's got a great sense of humor. And so he showed up again for the second time in 2 weeks on PTI. It was just announced the other day that Tony and Mike had signed contract extensions. So maybe this was part of the negotiation that they be allowed to have guests on like this. But Steve Young on yesterday, and they started with the J.J. McCarthy performance in the opener against the Bears on Monday, where he became the first quarterback to account for 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns in his debut. The last to do that was Steve Young when he was and technically not a rookie. I guess like J.J. McCarthy was technically not a rookie, though he never played last season because of a knee injury suffered in the preseason. But Young had come out of the USFL. The Tampa Bay Bucks had his draft rights. He played for them. They were a terrible team. But in his first game, he was able to lead them to victory with that performance in the fourth quarter, and that's what they started with last night on PTI.
Well, first of all, Tony, thank you for finding the one highlight of my season in Tampa Bay. The second highlight was coming back the next year to San Francisco as a quarterback for the 49ers. We played in Tampa, and I went out at halftime to receive the 1986 MVP of the 2-14 Bucks in front of the crowd. Great. But JJ, you got to think about JJ McCarthy. Sam Darnold was beloved. I mean, in one season, people loved him, and the locker room loved him. So he has now to enter as a young, inexperienced quarterback. He goes down to Chicago on opening Monday night under all that pressure, and then when he threw the pick six, didn't you all? I mean, I was like, oh my,
game over. Yeah.
Not only game over, but it's like now you've got the hills that you got to climb, the filters you got to go through to kind of get there. That it's just, you just don't want to start like a horse that gets out of the gate and then falls flat on its face. And then to see him gather himself after the pick six, gritty, and go get it done. There is nothing greater that could happen to a first-time quarterback in the NFL than what happened to JJ. His team now can point to it. Hopefully, if things go sour, then go, but he did it in week one and it was great. And so there's nothing better than what happened to JJ McCarthy and for JJ to get started this season.
Not for some of us.
No, not for you. Not for Bears fans.
It's the first time I ever rooted against that hard, a Chicago kid. All right, we're going to go to the other side of this, though, Stephen. I said yesterday Caleb Williams has to be deprogrammed from the Eberflus era. And as a quarterback who had to adjust to a new offensive system a time or two in your life, what does that take to do?
Michael, you hit me at the heart of what my passion is for the game today, is that so many defensive coordinator focused head coaches do not understand the position. And more than ever, the quarterback is football. And I people say, oh, that's Steve, that's crap. I'm just, look, I know it's conflated, but it's not that conflated. And so to not understand the position, you can see the teams that don't understand it and why they're not very good at it. So there is a transition, and having to learn a new offense is a transition. But then let's also look at Ben Johnson. Just looked it up on ChatGPT. He's never coached a mobile quarterback. And being a mobile quarterback, I was told in 1987, I was telling Tony, like I was told by Ray Perkins, I hate scramblers. Like it is unusual. In today's game, it's a prototype. If you're going to be a great, innovative offensive coordinator or head coach of quarterbacks, you need to be able to deal with the prototype. This is the prototype. This is Ben Johnson's first chance at that prototype. And I'm telling you, that's a transition. That is not simple for coach and quarterback. And to be able to gain that trust and understanding. And Caleb's trying to understand the one thing that's so hard today is that I don't know exactly when to go. I want to be a sophisticated passer of the football. I want to be Dan Marino. I want to be Peyton Manning. I want to be Tom Brady. But I also know that there's free yards out there to go get every game. I don't want to lose them. And that dilemma needs a lot of care and concern. And I wish, because I did it and lived it, I kind of wish they could connect to my brain and I could just give it to them, because it's very hard for people that don't. If you played quarterback in the NFL 18, 20 years, but never were capable of moving around, you would not know what to say. You would not know what to teach. And I think that's unique to the guys today.
We're old enough to remember when Steve was like the father of that. Yeah. I mean, after Tarkenton and Staubach, then it's Steve
not
the modern
grandfather, right?
Not the grandfather. We won't saddle you with that. Brian Daboll seemed to waffle on Russell Wilson being his starter for week 2. Russell Wilson's been at this a long time, Steve. If you hear your head coach sort of, what do you do week 2 if you're Wilson?
You gotta become the reason that you win some games, because in the background people are chirping for Jackson Dart because it's just the game today. Why is he standing there? Why is he sitting there? We're not going to lose games. Might as well lose them with Jackson Dart. That's how one game. That's how it gets started. And so Russell's been through it. He's a veteran, but he knows perception is 9/10 of the law as well, not possession. I learned in law school. Perception is I need to go be a reason. And he's old enough and mature enough, and he can figure it out. Go be the reason they win some games and hold on to your job, because it's iffy. When the coach starts to waffle, you got to get to Wednesday morning and hope that you're not getting benched, because it's close. So I would say, Russell, go be the reason. And that's not easy.
We'll get you out of here on this, and we're doing this question because the quote is so great. Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh said that the hit on Justin Herbert by linebacker Drew Tranquill, quote, would have killed a lesser man. Okay. That's how big that hit was. All right. Let's be honest about that, unquote. As someone who took big hits in your career, how perilous did that one look to you?
What is with the love affair between Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert? Look, I saw Justin Herbert at Oregon. He came to Stanford, and I got season tickets. There's no more pretty throwing motion other than Andrew Luck in history. I mean, it is a thing of beauty. I remember almost tearing up watching him throw the football. So I understand the love affair, but let's stop. Let's go look at that hit again. He turns his back. The linebacker gets a free run.
Thank you.
15 years ago, before the rule changes, his head he's leaping from 6 yards away, knifing into you. Like, come on, he has to bring his feet and knock him down. And I'm surprised he didn't try to pick him up. And I'd talk about overreaction, but I understand he's trying to defend his quarterback. I remember the fridge getting me straight on when I played the refrigerator Perry for the Bears. He was, how much, Michael, 350?
Yeah.
I mean, and he got me straight on, tipped me over, and I thought to myself, oh, this is it. I'm dead. I'm going to die. And he took me down and landed on me, and I thought he broke me. Like I broke, and I got up. I'm like, oh, I didn't break. I thought for sure I was dead.
That is
so.
great.
Look, I'm not trying to convert. Like, I'm not a get off my lawn kind of guy. But let's come on.
Get off the lawn
We can't
on
hit
that
the
one.
quarterback today.
Harbaugh.
Nobody can hit the quarterback today.
Yeah, look, Harbaugh should know better than anybody. He played like 15 years in the NFL. He's just planting a seed for referees. That's all that is. That's to get flags later on. And there's always stories of guys who got hit in the old days, and they don't know how it was. Perry was like 320. I don't think he was 350, but he was enormous for the time. I don't think you could play defensive line in the NFL now if you're not around 320 pounds. He wasn't cut, but he's a hell of an athlete. I mean, Refrigerator Perry could dunk a basketball. He could jump up on a table. He was heavy for the time, but not like today. And he probably would be a little bit more cut. I give you the Refrigerator Perry story. That 85 Super Bowl was January of 86 in New Orleans. He was such an unassuming guy. And I remember walking around Bourbon Street, and there was this huge crowd around somebody painting a picture. Look, they have these artists who paint your portrait down on Bourbon Street. And I look in the crowd, and there's Fridge sitting there getting his picture painted and not really thinking of anything because I don't think he truly understood his celebrity at that point. That was the 85 season where he was a national sensation when Mike Ditka started giving him the ball around the goal line or using him as a blocking back to score touchdowns late in the game. That was kind of a different time in the NFL. All right, that's a wrap for me. Tomorrow, full recap of the game. Bram is next with the preview. It's the Andy Pollard Show, ESPN 630.